What's up everyone and welcome back to the channel. It is build day. And if you hear a little buzz in the background, I apologize. I've got some fans going. It is hot. We have a big build in store today. It's going to be nice. Maybe not my fanciest and most elaborate, but it might be my most expensive. We might put on some gloves for this one. But first, let's go over our parts list. Let me reintroduce the Antec Performance 1FT. I haven't built in this case, but so far it seems nice. And if you want a full breakdown of this case and the unboxing, go to the previous video. I bought this one a while ago, and I'm looking forward to finally building it. For our motherboard, I need to make sure I get this right. We're going with the MSI Pro X870E-P Wi-Fi. It's my first time using this motherboard, but MSI is a good brand, so I'm sure we'll be alright. And because we're going big, of course we're going with the AMD Ryzen 7 9800X3D. Now 32 gigs of RAM is perfectly acceptable, but acceptable is not what we're going for today. So not only do we have this Corsair Vengeance kit, it is of course DDR5, it's 64 gigs. And of course we're running at that sweet spot of 6,000 mega transfers per second and CL30. For our graphics card, we're going with the only second to one RTX 5080. This is the MSI Ventus 3, which means it's got the 3-fan variant. And a little OC for what it's worth. Now if you're going to be gaming in style, you do not have time to be deleting games for making space. That's why we're going with Samsung's 990 Pro 4TB. You should be familiar with this. This is the Gen 4x4 with speeds up to 7450. Because I was on a bit of an MSI kick when I was buying these parts, we're going with MSI's MPG A1000G. 1000 watt power supply, 80 plus gold rated, and it's fully modular. Let's put you here. What's going to be keeping that CPU cool? One of the best coolers on the market, Arctic's Liquid Freezer 3. This is a 360mm AIO, and we do have the RGB variant. Now, like I mentioned in my previous video, this case does come with 3 large front and 1 exhaust fan, all blackout. So if you go with the blackout version, you're going to have a sweet stealth look. But that's not our plan today, mainly because RGB sells better, which is why we're going with more Arctic fans. These are all RGB. We have a 3-pack of the 140mm for the front. We have a 3-pack of the 120mm for above the power supply shroud. And I had a couple extras kicking around from another build I did. So we're going to use one of those for the rear exhaust fan of the case. Now this is always the moment I stop and take a look to see if I forgot anything, and I don't think I did. I think it's all here. So for the sake of time and editing, I'm not going to film putting all these together. You probably know how to put all this stuff together anyway. And if you don't, let me know. I could put together a video series of how all of these parts go together. I'm more interested in how the build comes together and the final product, and how everything works once it's all said and done. But before we do that, one thing I wanted to mention. In my last video, I said that I liked the gray accents up here. Well, that's because this motherboard is black and silver, black and gray, as is our Ventus card. So my hope between the accents on the card, the motherboard, and this front panel here, that black and gray will all tie in well together. At least it does in my head on paper. Let's see what it looks like in here. Alright, that's enough stalling. I'll see you in a second. Alright my friends, there you have it. I think it turned out pretty cool. One thing you can't tell from the video is how heavy this is. Now if you know who Boris the Blade is, hopefully that weight means reliability. But yeah, this thing was a breeze to build. It is a big case with a little extra room up front, but honestly not the type that annoys me. All the fans have access well, the spacing is really nice, and if I'm being nitpicky, there's really only 2 things that I can mention. The first thing is the GPU sits up a little higher. There's 8 instead of 7 PCIe brackets in the back, which means that the little GPU sag bracket that came with the graphic card doesn't fit. Now, to this graphics card credit, there's not a lot of sag, so it's okay. The second thing I want to mention is make sure that your CPU cables are plugged in first before putting in the radiator. because they're just visible and would be impossible to put in if this was in first. Now, Arctic's coolers are a little on the thicker side, but that being said, even one with a standard width, you still probably couldn't fit those. So make sure you got those cables in first before you put this in. Honestly, after that, no real complaints. The fans on the cooler came in pre-installed. The case came with screws for the lower fans, and you can see the space up front here isn't too bad. And if you look up at that far corner there, you can see the CPU cables that I mentioned and how tight those are up there. Tight, but they fit. Again, put them in first. The front panel pops off with no problem to the LED screen. Those things are separate. And for someone who hates cable management, despite the glass panel that's in the back, those shrouds cover up 90% of the cables, which is awesome. So yeah, I'm really happy with how this turned out. In fact, I'm really happy with this case too. I'm almost kind of sorry I'm going with another one. So if you're thinking about using this case or going with a build like this, I recommend it. Turned out pretty good. But that's all I have for this video. If you used this case before, or you're thinking about using it in the future, let me know in the comments. Between now and my next video, find me on social media under Fearless Fragger, and hopefully, I'll see you in the next one. Bye.